All right, fellas, we are closing out the rookie rankings. We have to talk about this tight end class because it is very good. It's not a class and a position that we usually love talking about as the tight end position. It's kind of the forgotten man in fantasy football land. But this tight end class is very, very good. There's a number of these guys that I would spend a second round rookie pick on. Going to be great sleepers in the third round of your rookie drafts. So we definitely need to break down these guys' games, what they do well, what they don't do well, where they're expected to go in the NFL draft, some comparisons, all that stuff will be covered in this video today. So make sure you watch it right to the end. A reminder that as you guys are watching this, my draft guide is live. So as I talk about strengths and weaknesses, you guys can see on flockfantasy.com that we have player cards, we have grades, we have everything that you could need to get ready for the NFL draft in a PDF downloadable draft guide. And using the promo code FSE, you can sign up over there on Flock Fantasy, get a 2-day free trial to check it out for yourself, and also 30% off using that promo code on any of the packages monthly. Annually, you get 6 months for free, all that good stuff. So with that being said, Danny, how you doing?
Doing well, doing well. And yeah, we got tight ends on the docket for today. And I swear the main reference we've made about the tight end position across the last few years we've been doing this is how gross, how icky it is in fantasy. Like outside of the top guys, you can't really project much. Just so happens that 2023 may be one of the best tight end draft classes we've seen in quite a while come to the NFL. So it's going to be more fun than usual breaking down some of these guys. A lot of guys we can see having high-end fantasy projections. A lot of guys maybe later on in the draft, rounds 3, rounds 4, that could be big contributors for their teams. A lot to unpack on today's video. So if you guys enjoy, make sure you leave a like. But with that being said, let's hit the intro.
All right, Danny, I'm glad you brought it up before the intro that the tight end position is gross. We haven't had, a young ascending tight end really outside of Kyle Pitts and like maybe Mark Andrews and like George Kittle a couple of years ago that had like this secure dynasty value. And I think a lot of people are getting into the trap of thinking none of these tight ends have worked out, right? Maybe Hawkinson as well. I forgot to mention him. These guys that go in the first round, we think of the OJ Howard class. Evan Ingram, just recently became productive. David Njoku just recently became productive. We have this stigma around the tight end position that they never develop. They're not worth early rookie picks, all that kind of stuff. But realistically, to me, I see that as an opportunity, especially for a guy like Michael Mayer, who's my tight end one, I believe is your tight end one as well, where you get a 21-year-old tight end like Michael Mayer with the prospect profile that this guy boasts. We're talking about a guy produced all 3 years in college. He was the reason that people were down on Cole Kmet coming out of college because we were like, oh, he's playing behind this freshman phenom, Michael Mayer, who we're going to talk about in 2023. He had a 33.2% target share this past year, which is a ludicrous number for a tight end. 2.39 yards per team pass attempt as a junior. Good size, 6'4", 250 pounds, roughly with good athleticism. A former number 2 overall recruit, 5-star recruit coming into college. This guy has literally everything that we could ask for at the tight end position. He is an excellent blocker. And I know that doesn't seem like it would be great for fantasy, but when it comes to tight ends, how many times have we projected Chiga Okonkwo types to become, fixtures in their offense and they never get the snaps? A guy like Michael Mayer, you never have to worry about that because he led this class with over an 82 PFF run blocking grade, better than Darnell Washington, better than any tight end realistically over the last 5 years. He has automatic hands, only 4 drops in the last couple years. This guy is unbelievable as a prospect. Has a prospect profile that honestly rivals some of the better wide receiver prospects that we've seen in recent years.
Yeah, when it comes to Michael Mayer, everything you want from a steady chain moving tight end, he offers you. You mentioned elite volume. What'd you say? A 33% target share for a freaking tight end. This is a guy that was outproducing, like you said, another NFL caliber tight end in Cole Kmet in his freshman year. So when you're talking about a production profile, year 1, year 2, year 3, at a position like tight end, where it usually takes longer for these guys to develop, Michael Mayer is an absolute freak when it comes to being able to command targets. Like you mentioned, a very, very good run blocker, is going to go in the first round of the NFL draft. The report came out today from Mike Giardi saying that his floor is 26 overall to my Dallas Cowboys. This is just a really, really damn good football player that people are starting to overlook. And the reason why they're overlooking is the one con about Michael Mayer, it's not even in his own control, but he just so happened to come out in one of the freakiest athletic tight end classes of all time, and he's just, a slightly above average athlete.
Yeah, not even 76th percentile in RAS, right? And that accounts for size, right? He has good size, so that helps him a little bit. But he still posted a 4.70 40-yard dash, a 73rd percentile weight adjusted speed score, which is a great number, especially for somebody of his skill set. And when you watch him on film, he was on a route 92.5% of the time. So even though he's a great inline blocker, he literally was on a route at the highest route participation in the entire class. He had tackles avoided per attempt of 17.91%. So he has a little bit of wiggle to him. He can break tackles. And then, of course, you talk about the efficiency, 91.6%, 91.6 PFF receiving grade, which was second in the country this year. Every year of his college career, his receiving grade improved. He was like a 78 receiving grade his freshman year, 85 as a sophomore, 91 as a junior, 2.44 yards per route run. By every metric, this is one of the best tight end prospects to ever come out of the NFL draft. And the only knock on this guy is that he's a good athlete, not a great athlete, not an elite athlete like a lot of these guys. He's a good athlete. And like you said, the Dallas Cowboys, team that could use an inline blocking tight end to a high degree, which we've seen when what they did with Dalton Schultz, who's a much more inferior player to Michael Mayer. A team like the Detroit Lions, who obviously deployed TJ Hawkinson pretty well, not great, but pretty well before he left town. The Washington Commanders, even Tampa Bay at 19. The Los Angeles Chargers would also be a great landing spot for him.
Green Bay Packers.
Exactly. Green Bay at 15. There's a number of spots. He's going to go in the first round. He's going to be a top 25 to 30 pick in the NFL draft. And for me in rookie drafts, we can kind of transition to where we would actually take him. It's going to depend a little bit on where the wide receivers go. Because if we get, a first round Zay Flowers, a first round Quentin Johnston, some of these running backs, maybe they go in the second and third round of the NFL draft, Charbonnet, Tank Bigsby, Roshan Johnson, some of these guys. I'm still comfortable taking Michael Mayer in the first round of a rookie draft, 112, 111 type of area. At the latest, I think you should be taking him 201, 202 if we just get like a great landing spot and great, draft capital for a couple of these receivers and running backs. But for me, he's still the clear tight end one. In a tight end premium league, I think he should probably go even a little bit higher, 110, 111 for sure. And Michael Mayer is a guy that I think everybody is sleeping on.
For sure. I would say closer to that early second round area, simply because there's another highly selected tight end in this draft class. Our consensus number 2, both of our number 2 tight ends, Dalton Kincaid over there in Utah. And he's got a little bit of a chalkier or a rockier type of prospect profile, a little bit on the older side. Didn't really produce till later in his career. But when he started to produce, you saw all the traits of your classic move tight end. And there's a reason why there's some Travis Kelce comps being thrown around on the internet right now for Dalton Kincaid, because his level of smarts in his route running, understanding route concepts around him, understanding how to utilize tempo in his routes to uncover as quickly as possible. He is one of the smarter route technicians at tight end we have seen come out in a while. And I get it. People are going to throw around, he's 24 years old. He better be smart with running his routes. We've seen older prospect profiles come for the tight end position night and day. Like, it's not like the wide receiver position where if you're not 21 years old, people will question why you didn't come out. People understand that tight ends usually take longer to develop. And with a guy like Dalton Kincaid, like we kind of said, he can step in right away, day one, and be the number 2 target on an offense. We kind of mentioned with Michael Mayer's draft projection that we expect him to be going in that, mid to late first round area of the NFL draft. We mentioned the Dallas Cowboys, the Los Angeles Chargers, the Washington Commanders, Green Bay Packers. There is an absolute gauntlet of teams in that mid to late first round area that can take a tight end. And I think Kincaid has the opportunity to be a staple of whatever team who chooses him passing attack. So I'll let you take it away with some of the things you saw with Dalton Kincaid.
Yeah, I think the movement ability is the thing that's getting everybody excited, because he does move and run routes more like a big wide receiver. And that's why people are comparing him to Travis Kelce. I comped him to Eric Ebron, which I think is also, again, people might think that's a bad comparison. Eric Ebron had like top 5 seasons and 13 touchdowns with Andrew Luck in 2018. And I think that would be a great range of outcomes for a guy like Dalton Kincaid. I think he would produce sooner than Eric Ebron did. Obviously, he had a slow start to his career in Detroit, but he was an early declare, a guy that came out a little young and a little raw. So Kincaid is almost like the pro version of Eric Ebron, but in college. And he had a 91.6 PFF receiving grade, which was the only one in the country better than Michael Mayer this past year. And he also had 2.42 yards per route run. So even though he was late to produce at 23 years old, he produced at a very, very high level for a tight end. He's not a good blocker, right? He's not going to be the guy that's going to play in line, who's going to play, in the run game and pass protection. But the nice thing, again, is that like Mayer, he was out on routes at a high percentage. Over 90% of the time he was running a route. again, he has some red flags. His injury at the end of the season it could cause his draft capital to suffer. It could cause, teams maybe to take him off their board, whatever the case is. He also has a little bit of functional strength issues. He's not quite as strong either in the run game or at the catch point as some of these other tight ends. But for me, just a rock solid move tight end prospect. A team like Jacksonville, where they have Evan Ingram in place for this year on a 1-year deal on the franchise tag, they could go with Kincaid in the future. I think he would be a perfect landing spot for a guy like Dalton Kincaid. He'd obviously be, attached to Trevor Lawrence going forward. I also think your Cowboys would be interested. I think the Green Bay Packers would be interested. I think the, New Orleans Saints potentially at 29 would be interested. Detroit Lions, those types of teams. So Dalton Kincaid to me is these two guys are cut above the rest of the class just because of their production profiles and because of what they've done this past year in college.
Yeah, I'm quickly going to say with Dalton Kincaid, and people are going to mention, he spent 5 years in college. He's an older player. That is the big con of Dalton Kincaid. But I will refute that a little bit because although he stayed in college for 5 years, there wasn't a single year where he wasn't productive. Because in this, the first 2 years obviously played at San Diego, but in his first year as a freshman had nearly 400 receiving yards. In his second year as a sophomore, 44 receptions, 835 yards, and 8 touchdowns. That is elite type of production. Now, for what it's worth, lesser competition, ends up moving over to Utah. Last year in 2021, still a very productive year. His first full year at Utah, got hurt in 2020. 510 receiving yards and 8 receiving touchdowns. Obviously, he had that big breakout for Utah this year. So if you're looking at the profile, like you would expect, fifth year coming out, older player, he must have just not been productive, then suddenly produced when he was the older player of the bunch. But that is not the issue with Dalton Kincaid. He's been productive every single year in college.
Yeah, he just happened to explode this year and really be productive and had his best year. And also, I kind of like when players get better throughout their college careers. I don't like them to peak as freshmen and never get better like Kayshon Boutte and Rondell Moore have in recent years. So for me, I like Kincaid quite a bit. I would take him, if Mayer is a guy that I would take borderline first round, 112, 201 type of area, Kincaid's right there behind him. And again, it's going to depend on what happens with the wide receivers and the running backs, landing spots, draft capital, stuff like that. But 203, 204, 205, 206 type of area for Dalton Kincaid, yeah, sign me up, man. Like he's got a great profile for a move tight end. If he can go to a team that knows how to use somebody like that, and I think Jacksonville is the nuts range of outcomes for him, then he would be a great option. If we get, Michael Mayer 26 to Dallas and Dalton Kincaid 24 to Jacksonville, those two guys will be well set up to potentially, like I said, not a lot of young breakout candidate tight ends at the top of Dynasty rankings right now. It's mostly, Andrews, who's like 29 years old, who, by the way, was my comp for Michael Mayer. We have, Pitts, who hasn't quite proven it yet. We have Kittle. We have Kelsey. These guys are more productive, like later in their career tight ends. These guys could ascend right away. You get a productive rookie season out of these guys, they might be tight end 2 in Dynasty this time next year.
Yep. No, absolutely agree. So overall, you guys know how good those top 2 guys are. We wanted to spend a little bit more time on them because obviously they're going to be the ones heavily affected in your rookie drafts. The only 2 like clear locks to go in the first 2 rounds of your rookie drafts. But now we head on to our number 3, and we have a little bit of a disagreement here because we each have our own number 3. So I'll let you take it away with your number 3 and someone that might shock the viewer at home.
Yeah, my number 3 tight end is Zack Kuntz, who, if you guys recall, probably most of you, the only thing you know about him is that he was literally the best tight end athlete in combine history. He ranks 1 out of like 1,104 tight ends or something like that since 1987. Do you want to hear how ludicrous the numbers he put up at the combine were? This is a guy that ran 4.55 at 6'7" 3/8 and 255 pounds, which is a literally stupid number. His 10-yard split was 1.55. For reference, Devon Achane's was 0.04 seconds faster. Devon Achane, 188-pound Devon Achane, who ran a 4.3 at the combine. His 10-yard split, his get-off, his acceleration was only a little bit better than a 6'7.5", 255-pound tight end. He also can jump 40 inches, 10.8 broad. Agility scores of 4.12, better than Zay Flowers and Josh Downs. Like, we are talking about a guy that is a freak of nature. And that's not the only reason I'm bought into this guy. He ranked top 5 in the country in 2021. Yes, he played at Old Dominion. It's lower level competition with 112 targets. He was second in the country behind Trey McBride, who came out last year as a 2nd-round pick of the Cardinals, in targets. So we have a freak of nature athlete who also has produced in a season. He was a little bit injured this year. He transferred from Penn State after 3 years there. He was playing behind Pat Freiermuth the entire time. and he got a lot better once he got to Old Dominion. So what we have with Zack Kuntz is a guy who's a freak athlete, and he plays every bit like he tested too. He's a fluid mover. Me and Danny were watching some film before we started recording this. This guy literally shimmy shakes guys at the top of his route at 6'7.5", 255 pounds. Like he looks like Dalton Kincaid a little bit, and Dalton Kincaid is like 4 inches shorter than him and like, 15 pounds lighter. Like we're talking about a guy that legitimately has fluid movement ability at that size. It looks like he's an offensive lineman running routes out there. Like it's pretty crazy how big the guy is. When you're watching film, sometimes you got to look for the player. You're like, okay, where is Zack Kuntz? You don't miss him. He's so obvious, and he played on the outside and in the slot over 65% of the time. And even though he's improved as a blocker this past year, most of the time, and most NFL teams are going to view him as a move tight end at that size.
Which is ridiculous, by the way. We were talking before recording this show that his movement ability and the way he runs routes is so basketball-esque that it reminds you of Jimmy Graham. And you can't miss it. You see the big 8-0 on the field, 6'8", 251 pounds. It looks like Jimmy Graham running out there. Now, for what it's worth, the cons, obviously, the level of competition. Aside from that, I don't really see much cons with him.
I mean, he's got to work on his ability at the catch point. He wasn't as good in contested situations as he should have been, given his size. And I think he needs to I don't really know exactly what he needs to do, because it almost looks like he doesn't know how to track balls and jumping, timing his jumps and stuff like that. But I do think an NFL tight ends coach that knows what they're doing and has developed tight ends in the past could get the absolute best out of this dude. And this guy is either going to turn into the next Mike Gesicki, oh man, what a great athlete. It's a shame he never put it all together. But he also could turn into Jimmy Graham. I legitimately think he could turn into that level of dominance at his position, because at his size, you can't put a safety on him. He's got 6 or 7 inches, and he uses his body to shield defenders very, very well on, out routes and corner routes and post routes and back shoulder stuff in the red zone, whatever you want to talk about. And then he also has the strength and the speed to be able to toast linebackers. So you're not going to be able to guard him with that. The only teams that could guard a guy like this at his ceiling are guys with big safeties who can match that physicality, like a Derwin James or maybe Jamal Adams in his prime, somebody like that. But most of these teams do not have players like that. So it's very difficult to guard a guy like this if he hits his ceiling, which is why I have Zack Kuntz as my tight end 3. You're going to hear more about him in the sleepers video in a couple days, because I'm going to talk about him again. He is one of the guys that I am auto smashing anytime he's available in the 3rd round of my rookie draft.
And the one thing I want you guys to take away at home when you're watching this is, although we have to rank them in an order for algorithm's sake, for SEO sake, for your guys' aesthetic sake, these tight ends 3 to 7 in particular, and then maybe you could mention a guy like Luke Schoonmaker. We'll talk about some honorable mentions at the end, but they're all so close in terms of their projection. And really, whoever gets the better landing spot, whoever gets the better draft capital is going to shuffle in and out. But when it comes to Zack Kuntz, like you mentioned, freak athlete, productive, which you don't usually see for a guy that size, all the traits to be, a very, very high level contributor if he hits. The next guy I'm going to be talking about in my tight end 3 is basically that, when you hear that, argument, super high ceiling, big time athlete, big time frame, the guy you think about in this class is Darnell Washington. Darnell Washington from Georgia. You mentioned Zack Kuntz had the freakiest combine of all time, according to Math Bomb. Well, Darnell Washington wasn't too far behind. Number 14 out of a 1,104 qualified tight ends since 1987. Absolute freak of nature. The only real measure that weighed down his combine performance from being a 10.0 was the fact that he only had a 31 vert. However, that's offset by the fact he had a ridiculous 10.2 in the broad. When you're talking about Darnell Washington, it is all what you can envision him becoming. Because if you look at his profile and you look at the production, you see a guy that was playing behind Brock Bowers, and validly so. Brock Bowers next year, you're going to hear a lot about that guy being the tight end 1 in next year's class. I know you'll refute that a little bit because there's a guy close to him in your opinion, but regardless, Darnell Washington was on the field with an extremely productive move tight end with Brock Bowers. But when he got his opportunities in this offense, this is one of the freakier tight ends in the entire country. We're talking about a guy that at 6'6", 264 pounds, averaged nearly 19 yards per reception across his entire college career. That is insane. You don't even see like deep vault like Jalen Hyatt types who have 19 yards per reception, and this guy's doing it at tight end. Not to mention elite blocker out there. He's can play in line. He has the movement ability to play split out if you need him to. If he goes in round one, which is what everything we're hearing from reports are saying, teams like Cincinnati are in on him, Dallas are in on him, late round one teams are in on Darnell Washington. If he is developed the right way, he has the opportunity to be one of the freakiest mismatches we'll see in the NFL. I think he profiles similar to a guy like Martellus Bennett. And if you paid attention to Martellus Bennett through his career, now, do I think he's going to have that ultimate volume ceiling? Maybe not, but Martellus Bennett had a very, very good amount of tight end one-level seasons, capped off by that year in Chicago where he had 900-plus receiving yards and 6 or 7 touchdowns. So if Darnell Washington can be developed in the right way, and I trust whatever coaching staff to be able to put in that work and develop him as a true volume type of wide receiver, he's never going to be more than like the number 3 in an offense. But if he's a highly efficient number 3 that is snagging 7 to 10 touchdowns a year, you're going to be happy taking this guy in the mid to late second round of your rookie drafts.
So I have him at tight end 6. So I'm a little bit lower than you on Darnell Washington. The reason I have him at tight end 6, and for what it's worth, I mean, Kuntz is my tight end 3. Washington is my tight end 6. They're separated by 40 points, and there's 2 guys in between them. So these guys are all like mid-second round talents, in my opinion. I feel a little scarred by OJ Howard with Darnell Washington, which is why I have him a little bit lower, because when you simply just don't command targets, and I get it, he's playing behind Brock Bowers, but he was still running routes a decent amount, and the receivers, Bowers, some of the other tight ends were getting targets more often than him. I also don't think he's the most natural pass catcher in this class at tight end. I think you can tell he has a lack of experience in that area when you watch him, because body catches a lot of passes, doesn't necessarily have the best body control, doesn't have the best ball tracking ability. But like you said, when you get the ball in this guy's hands, man, he's a freight train with the ball in his hand. He is very difficult to bring down. He's also pretty elusive for his size, got a decent amount of wiggle. Of course, we saw his agility score was also completely ridiculous, posted like the second highest one at the combine other than like JSN. So this guy's a freak in nature. He's the type of tight end that we're clearly okay betting on, because we're just talking about 2 freaky tight ends at 3 and 4 here. My comp for him, though, is OJ Howard, which makes me a little bit nervous. A guy that we think we can get the best out of, but if he doesn't put it all together mentally, then it's possible that we might not have that great of a tight end. But the bright side is Darnell Washington is the only tight end other than Michael Mayer in this class that is a true junior, early declared tight end. So he's still very young. He still has a lot of upside. And it's not like he was in the NCAA for 5 years and never put it together. He was just there for 2 years or for 3 years, and he was playing behind Bowers the whole time.
You mentioned the agility. This is ludicrous to me. A 408 shuttle at 6'6.5", 264 pounds. Sorry, I just saw that on my screen. I had to say it out. And for those of you at home, if that made you excited too, then glad you enjoyed that. But man, it's like looking at an Avenger on a spreadsheet.
Yeah, dude, he's a freak of nature, man. I don't know what else we can say. I worry that he's never going to put it all together. That's my concern with him. And for that reason, I probably wouldn't take him higher than like the late second in a great landing spot like Cincinnati, potentially at 28. You have 2 great targets already. Let him be efficient. Let him get, seam balls, red zone work, that kind of stuff. That'd be a great landing spot for him. I think that would be his best case scenario. I'd take him at the late second round of a rookie draft, maybe early third, mid third, if he goes to like a worse landing spot than that. But he is still somebody I'm very interested in. If he goes to Tennessee, he'll probably be a 3rd round pick for me. But otherwise, I think I really like him. Tucker Kraft is actually my tight end 4 right now. And the reason is because my comp for him is Pat Freiermuth. So I can save you guys some time right now. Just think of everything that Pat Freiermuth does well. He gets open. He's able to catch the ball very well. He's good after the catch. He's got underrated wiggle. He never tested actually coming out of Penn State, but he probably would have tested very similarly to Tucker Kraft. 4.7 in the 40, good agilities, good burst score, but not like an elite athlete. 6'5", 255 pounds, a good blocker. He can play in line, and he's very tough, very physical, and he was very productive. Even though he played at South Dakota State, he still was top 6 in the country in targets, yards, receptions, and he missed a few games in 2022, but I'm talking about his 2021 season when he really, really broke onto the scene. Target share of 20.69%, which ranks top 5 in this class from the 2021 season as well. So Tucker Kraft is a guy that I think is a little underrated because he plays for a small school and because he played at South Dakota State. I think everybody's going to comp him to Dallas Goedert. But to me, I think he's a little bit less of an athlete than Dallas Goedert, a little bit more of your reliable tight end like Pat Freiermuth. But the nice thing is he still tested well, and he has the projection that he's going to go in the second round be like Detroit, I think is a perfect landing spot for him because they could use a TJ Hawkinson light. And I think that's what Tucker Kraft kind of represents.
Yeah, no, I like Tucker Kraft as well. You kind of mentioned that, maybe at the nuts range of outcomes, like a Dallas Goedert, like you kind of said, but Pat Freiermuth, if you get a Pat Freiermuth type in the mid to late portion of your second round of your rookie draft, I think you'd be pretty impressed. So overall, this guy's probably going to go on day 2. He's probably going to, like, realistically in the tight end landscape right now, all of the best offenses for the most part are the ones that need a tight end, like Dallas, the Chargers, the Bengals, the freaking Washington's not on that level, but they could be pretty good. Green Bay
Bills
Packers
potentially could add a tight end.
Bills, Packers, if Jordan Love develops, I can see them having a nice
Dolphins.
step on the off. Like it's ridiculous how the best tight end class we've seen in quite a while all fills the needs of some of the best contending teams from an offensive standpoint in the NFL. So pretty remarkable. Like Tucker Kraft, the other guy we want to mention here on this list is going to be Sam Laporta. Very, very productive tight end out of Iowa. It's pretty remarkable from a team percentage standpoint, just how productive this guy was. If you guys have watched any Iowa football across the last few years, they may be the worst, most stale offense I have seen in my life. Like, they're a team that consistently has their defense and special teams scoring more points in certain games than their fucking offense. And this is still a guy who, in the last 2 years, respectively, 53 receptions, 670 yards, 3 touchdowns, 58 receptions, 657 yards, 1 touchdown. Now, the scoring ability, I'm not worried about. People might point out, oh, he has 5 total touchdowns in his career. Do you get concerned about that? When you're on freaking Iowa, I don't expect anybody to have a high prowess of being able to score touchdowns, but this is a guy who tested well. This is a guy who, like I said, very, very high team share type of numbers, fits that, reliable intermediate target for an NFL offense. And like we kind of said, there's a ton of really good teams that could use that exact fit on their offense. So Sam Laporta, we love him a lot. He's inside this top 6 or whatever you want to call it. Realistically, the jumble of tier 2 tight ends is how we're going to refer to it.
Yeah, I think the underrated part about his game is that he avoided a tackle in 34.48% of his attempts. And his body style is a little bit different than the rest of these guys. Most of these other guys are like 6'5 plus 250 pounds. And then the 2 freaks, Kuntz and Washington. Laporta's 6'3, 245. So he's a little bit smaller. He's more kind of the size that Kincaid is. But the fact that he can break tackles, 56% of his yards came after the catch, 6.3 yards after catch per reception. I think that's his best quality. Get him in space. Get him on the move. You run him on a drag route. You run him on a curl route. He can break tackles. He can avoid tackles. And another thing that's very encouraging, 29% target share, like you said, team adjusted stuff. He was 4th in the country. Even though he had 3 touchdowns this year, he was 4th in the country in yards. Only behind, can you name the tight ends? Bowers, Kincaid, and Michael Mayer. Like those are like the great tight ends in college football. And Sam Laporta was right there. So he's another guy. My comp for him was Tommy Tremble, yet another victim, by the way, of Michael Mayer being at Notre Dame because he didn't produce while he was there either. The things that I have worried for Sam Laporta is that his hands weren't really an asset to his game. He led the class with 6 drops in 2022. He definitely needs to work on his technique. He body catches a lot of passes as well. And defenders were able to disrupt him at the catch point quite a bit because he's not as big of a tight end as some of these other guys. And as a result, you might imagine he's probably not as good of a blocker as these other guys too. So he needs a little bit of work on his physicality, his strength at the catch point. But I do really like him as like a day 2 tight end. I'm trying to think a team that could use him in like round 2. If Dallas doesn't take a tight end in the first round, he makes a lot of sense. Same with Jacksonville. If they don't take tight ends in the first round, I think he makes sense for both of those teams. Packers make a lot of sense for him as well. So a lot of these teams could use tight ends. I think all of these guys that we just mentioned in this video will probably be off the board before pick 64, probably before the end of the second round. All these guys will hear their name called. Quick honorable mentions, as we mentioned, were Luke Musgrave, who, to me, the reason I think he's down here is because he's just a lower version of Darnell Washington and Zack Kuntz. The freak athlete, great athleticism, great movement ability, but he doesn't have really any production. And he dealt with so many injuries that he's, a little bit concerning from that perspective. But another guy that we expect to go probably in round 2 or 3 of the NFL draft, and, maybe a team like the Commanders takes him or somebody like that. I wouldn't be shocked if Luke Musgrave also, great or like 3rd round rookie pick type of guy. If you don't want to take Michael Mayer at 112, I understand it. You can grab some of these guys in the late 2nd, early 3rd round of your rookie draft, and you want to take it away with one of your Michigan Wolverines, you can mention as well.
Well, I mentioned our honorable mentions, oddly enough, are 2 Lukes. You mentioned Luke Musgrave. Luke Schoonmaker from Michigan. really solid year this past year. Dealt with some injuries through the middle portion of the year, but over 400 receiving yards. And then he ended up going out and testing like an absolute fucking freak at the combine. 9.86 or RAS score, 4.63 40-yard dash, really, really good agility. He's 3-cone 6.81, 9.81 score on RAS. Just an absolute another freak of a tight end prospect in this class. 16th graded tight end in terms of athletically out of 1,104 since 1987. So this just kind of shows to me, like, if this guy is probably going to find his way in the top 120, 125 type of range. But if he goes in day two, I mean, we could be talking about legitimately 6 or 7 tight ends going within the top 100 this year. That is how loaded the NFL or the draft is for tight ends. That is how the NFL views these guys. And that, quite frankly, shows the state of the tight end position across the league. Because, I mean, we talk about it in fantasy. Outside of the top guys, nobody else is realistically that relevant. So the NFL kind of realizes, like, oh, we need an injection of pass catching talent at this position. And it just so happens, like we kind of mentioned, that this class absolutely feeds that from a volume perspective. 7 or 8 guys that I can see, like I mentioned, going in the top 100.
I have 6 of these guys in my top 15 dynasty tight ends right now because I think they're really it's going to be like the 2017 running back class injects at that position, except at tight ends. I think Mayer and Kincaid are both top 10 dynasty tight ends right now. I think, Kuntz, Washington, Laporta, Kraft, they fill out the end of the top 15 type of area. And then even some of these other guys, great sleeper options, Schoonmaker, Latu from Alabama, Davis Allen from Clemson. There's Bretton Strange from Penn State. There's guys in this class that are going to be 3rd, 4th round picks that are good dart throws in the 4th round of your rookie draft and things like that. So to recap where we would take these guys in rookie drafts, if you missed it, Michael Mayer, my comp for him was Mark Andrews. I would take him at the end of the 1st round of a rookie draft, especially in tight end premium leagues. Dalton Kincaid, early to mid 2nd round of your rookie draft is where you should take him. My comp for him was Eric Ebron. Like I said, Zack Kuntz, my comp for him is Jimmy Graham because I think he actually has that kind of upside. At the low end, he's going to be like a Jelani Woods type, but I do think because he has the production, because he showcases some legit route running ability and move tight end ability, to me, he seems more like a Jimmy Graham type of production. I know that's such lofty praise, borderline Hall of Fame caliber talent, but I really think he has that kind of ceiling. He's the type of guy, because he goes later than a lot of these dudes, I'm probably going to get him like mid 3rd of a lot of my rookie drafts. But if he gets great draft capital, goes 2nd, 3rd round or something like that, and he tested very well, so I expect him to, then he's going to be a guy that I'm literally cool taking late 2nd, early 3rd round. Same goes for Washington, who my comp for was OJ Howard. Sam Laporta, Tommy Tremble was my comp for him, but obviously a better production profile than Tommy Tremble. And then Tucker Kraft, my comp for him was Pat Freiermuth, only a little bit more wiggle, a little bit more yards after catch ability than a guy like Pat Freiermuth. All those guys, late 2nd, early to mid 3rd, they should hear their names called in your rookie draft. So I'm totally comfortable taking those guys.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. But either way, if you guys enjoyed, went a little bit longer than we expected on tight ends. But if you enjoyed, if you're a tight end savant, you need some tight ends in this rookie draft, make sure you leave a like down below. Like Corey had mentioned, check out Flock Fantasy, where you guys can get all of our rankings, articles. Corey mentioned his database. I'll let you take it away with some of the stuff that you've been putting up over there.
Yeah, I mean, I put up databases for everybody in this class, basically all the positions, so you can check out, do your own research if you need to after the draft. Once you know where they're going, maybe that makes you a little bit more confident in like this ability translating or whatever the case is. I will be dropping a draft guide today as you guys are watching this, and it'll have all my player cards, everybody that I've graded, even the guys that I didn't grade. I'll give a short blurb on some sleepers and some late round guys if you're curious about them, and you'll know, why I have, Chase Brown as my RB5 or my RB6, why I have Zack Kuntz as my tight end 3, why I have Bryce Young as my QB1. You'll be able to see what I graded, what games I watched, their best traits, their worst traits, all their RAS scores, all that stuff will be included, their size, their age, all that stuff in those player cards. And that'll be available in one PDF. It'll probably be like 30, 40 pages that you guys can skim through. During draft weekend, we're going to pull up these player cards and talk about them once they get, picked off the board. Once Zack Kuntz hears his name called, we're going to be like, oh, Zack Kuntz, he was my tight end 3 pre-draft. This is where I graded him, etc. So we're going to talk about all that stuff, and that is available at flockfantasy.com. Use the promo code FSE for 30% off, 6 months for free when you sign up annually, 2-day free trial to check out everything before you buy. Our rankings, our bonus content, our articles, our videos, all that stuff will be available over there. So definitely check that out. If you guys are new to the channel, leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you are new, like I said, and comment down below who your favorite tight end is, what you disagree with, what you agree with on this video. But with that being said, peace out, and we'll talk to you soon.